Today on BBN, the Bonnies welcome in the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles later tonight. We preview their matchup with Dunk City. The women's team hits the road tonight. Can they string 2 wins in a row for the first time this season? And we get ready for the holidays with some Christmas fun and, of course, our final predictions for both Bonnies games tonight. All that right now on BBN. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of BBN. We're braving the conditions here this morning, a little snowy here in the studio. I'm here with Anthony Goss and Louis Genovese. I'm Ryan Bolin. Guys, it's good to be back here.
Yeah, it's good to be back. A little bit chilly, a little bit snowy, but it doesn't stop us from covering this Bonnies game, an important Bonnies game tonight against Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. St. Bonaventure, they welcome in the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles tonight, 4 days removed from their last matchup with Iona. Tonight marks the last non-conference game at the Riley Center for the Bonnies, who look to defend their unblemished home record. Dunk City enters the game with an 8-3 mark, knocking off the USC Trojans at the beginning of the season. The Bonnies have had an up-and-down stretch in recent weeks, unable to string wins together after beating Middle Tennessee State on November 30th. Coach Schmidt's squad looks to change that trend against the Eagles tonight. And guys, we'll take a look at some of the stats from between these two teams. And Anthony, I'll start with you. Very similar across the board.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same number of assists per game, actually. But two teams that will rebound well, will be able to score, can hit some shots. It's going to be a really interesting clash of styles tonight.
And Louis, obviously they're two teams that are so close together in all these stat categories. What does St. Bonaventure need to really outdo Florida Gulf Coast in order to get a victory tonight?
To really maximize their strengths, they have to minimize their weaknesses. One of the things that has been rough ever since the Middle Tennessee win was that we've been seeing a lot of turnovers, struggles at the foul line, the free throw line. We've been seeing problems on defensively. They struggled to get the rebounds. They also had some problems with the fouls. To really win this game, the Bonnies need to maximize their strengths. They got some good ones, but they have to minimize their weaknesses at the same time to get the win.
Yeah, guys, and we'll go right into one of our favorite segments here at BBN, and that is one word. Anthony, I'll start with you. What's really a word that characterizes St. Bonaventure basketball up to this point and kind of previewing the rest of the season?
Ryan, my word is energy. Energy is going to be crucial tonight. They've had energy at the Riley Center with the fans here. Tonight, that's not the case. The fans have gone home for break. It's Christmas time. Everybody is away from campus, so you will have fans in the stands. There will be people to support, but it's not going to be the same. It's a little bit different this time. Manufacturing energy against a team that is very skilled, has beaten USC this year. They've won some important games. Manufacturing that energy, it's going to be crucial for the Bonnies. I expect them to do that tonight.
And Louis?
I think my one word is urgency. After beating Middle Tennessee, but then losing to UB and then eventually to Iona, and the Bonnies definitely need to. This was like a wake-up call for them. After getting that huge win over Notre Dame that would later go on to beat Michigan State, they really need to show like, okay, well, we had these moments and now we're down back to earth. Now we got to regroup. Now we got to be ready to go at it because this is our last home game before conference play, and they're also taking the trip to Siena to play the Franciscan Cup. They got to defend the cup, right? And they need to be able to have that urgency and be in the right move to go into that game on Monday, and also to be able against conference play in January.
Yeah, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. My word very similar to yours, grounded. I think the Bonnies basketball team, they got grounded after that loss against Iona. Obviously, they beat Middle Tennessee. Everyone's thinking, okay, we're good. They beat Notre Dame. Like, okay, here's a Power 5 team. We were able to knock them off. And they lose to Iona, UB. So I think this team is definitely grounded, and they got to regroup. And this is, like you just said, they have to be able to regroup, especially as they head into conference play. But as the Franciscans will say, it starts at that Siena game. They really want that Franciscan Cup back at St. Bonaventure. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to respond here tonight after that loss on Sunday. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick look around the Atlantic 10. The Bonnies, the only Atlantic 10 team in action here tonight. And as we take a look at it, Loyola Chicago, they were able to upset the 8-2 Clemson Tigers in the 4th game of the holiday Hoopsgiving on Saturday. Philip Alston led the way both offensively and defensively, scoring 23 points and registering 3 blocks. Rhode Island hosted UMass Lowell on Wednesday night in a tight one. Ishmael Leggett led the Rams with 19 points to help force overtimes. and then the Rams would then score 13 points to help secure the win over the Riverhawks. And finally, VCU hosted Radford on Wednesday. After trailing by 2 points at the half, the Rams rallied back to win 70-62. And guys, finally a decent week in Atlantic 10 basketball after we've seen, some of the top teams that we expected struggle and some of the struggling teams do well. It's been a little unorthodox to start the year.
Yeah, it's been a really weird start to the non-conference season for the A10, and it was important for them, the best teams in the conference, to get some wins before conference play started and everybody starts beating up on each other. But a strong finish, as we see there. Rhode Island comes back to win the other night against a good UMass Lowell team. Loyola starting to get back to their winning ways, and that trend's kind of being seen all around the conference as well. And
guys, we're less than 10 days away from Christmas, so we want to get into a little bit of the holiday spirit. So we're going to introduce a new segment here. Anthony, I'll start with you. A Christmas, movie and character. How does that compare to an Atlantic 10 team?
Yeah, Ryan, I got to go with Clark Griswold to start this series of A10 Christmas comparisons. Clark Griswold, he wants to have the perfect Christmas, recreate the Griswold family Christmas, and this ambition, this desire, kind of reminds me of Dayton this year. Comes in with that national ranking, number 24 in the country, and a lot of expectations as a preseason favorite in the A10, but things haven't really gone their way. Just like Clark, with all the family coming in unexpectedly, all these things happening with the tree and everything else going wrong with Christmas. Dayton, their season, they go to the Battle for Atlantis, they lose 3 games there. You're not really expecting that if you're a Dayton fan. They come back home, they barely beat a not very good Southeast Louisiana team, get the doors blown off by Virginia Tech. And they won their last game, but it's kind of a weird situation with this many losses this early in the season. So kind of comparing that to Clark Griswold, a little bit of unexpected journey, but maybe in the end, just like with Clark, it ends in a good spot.
Yeah, Louie.
Oh yeah, we gotta remember everybody's favorite jolly man this Christmas, Scott Calvin. He was a successful businessman before he had to take on the role of Santa Claus, and he had to adjust to a whole new lifestyle. And I think that's really compared to the Loyola Chicago Ramblers. They were living in the Missouri Valley Conference, having a lot of success, winning conference championships, making that legendary 2018 Final Four run. They had back-to-back appearances the past 2 seasons, and now they're in the A10. They had some losses against Boise State and Texas A&M and Harvard, but they just came off a win against Clemson. So really, like Scott Calvin, he sort of grew to embrace his new role as Santa Claus, and I think like Loyola Chicago, they really are starting to be able to embrace their new role in this conference, and the Ramblers, I think, are definitely going to only go up from here.
Yeah, I like your guys' movie comparisons. Very good, very good. I think, when you think about Home Alone, Harry, beginning of the movie, comes in as a cop. In his true identity, though, he's a thief. He wants to, take everything from that house. And it's just, pretending to be something that you're not. And your true identity later shows out throughout the course of the movie in the case of Harry. I think that's a Fordham situation. Fordham is 11-1, excuse me, right now in the Atlantic 10, top of the conference. Obviously, it doesn't matter non-conference play. We'll see what they do in the conference. I think it's just like Harry, his true identity showed throughout the movie. I think Fordham's true identity is going to show throughout the course of the season. I'm not saying that they're not a good team, but #1 in the conference. There's a lot of good teams in the Atlantic 10. I don't think Fordham will end up at #1. I think their true colors are going to show throughout the course of the season. Well, guys, when we come back from break, we're going to take a look at the Atlantic 10 standings and talk a little bit about the women's team. So stick around with us. You're watching BBN.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a 4th ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When
When I got the opportunity to get her, there wasn't no choice. I told myself, I'm gonna take custody of my daughter. It's my baby. That's what we're supposed to do as men. Take care of our home, build a foundation, you know what I'm saying? Love, our money, she's my purpose. I'm here to walk with her, hold her hand until she can walk alone. Ain't nothing like being a father in this world.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
We got into the Christmas spirit before the break, but we want your take. Do you like the classics or do you prefer claymation? Send us your favorite Christmas movies and we will share your responses on our Instagram page. Well, guys, said we were going to talk about the Atlantic 10 when we come back. Taking a look at the Atlantic 10 standings. Before the break, mentioned how, Fordham, number 1. They're 11-1 this season. They've played 11 out of 12 games at home. It's very rare that you're going to see a team not only do that, but you're going to be successful when you play at home. Like St. Bonaventure, they're 5-0, so it's not surprising to see them on top. And then you got the Duquesne Dukes up there too. Then you got Dayton all the way towards the bottom at, I think, 10. It's been a wild A10 so far.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic to see the Duquesne Dukes and the Fordham Rams at the top of the standings. A little bit weird, a little bit unfamiliar for A10 fans, especially with St. Louis, VCU, Dayton, kind of off to some rough starts. But I expect that to kind of even out as we get into A10 play.
Yeah, St. Bonaventure right now at 9th in the Atlantic 10 standings, preseason number 10, so overachieving so far as you take a look at it. Taking a look at the women's A10 standings right now, Dayton, they're at the bottom, so both men and women kind of struggling at the start of this season. Dayton women, they're usually towards the top of the conference. Right now they are at the bottom. You see Rhode Island and St. Joe's at top. Duquesne 3 in both men's and women, so I think everybody in Duquesne land is happy with how basketball is going so far.
Start for Duquesne, really.
St. Bonaventure right now as it stands, they come in at 12th. Obviously they have to get healthy and they can worry about the A10 schedule when it comes up. They definitely want to worry about getting healthy first. So guys, taking a look at the women's basketball team, they take on the Robert Morris Colonials tonight in a big game to try to get 2 wins in a row for the first time. They downed the Colonials 61-53 in the Riley Center last season. The Brown and White are going to look to replicate last year's success and earn, like I mentioned, consecutive wins for the first time this season. Bonner, they also await the return of backcourt pieces and Maddie Diskowski and Tiana Johnson in a depleted lineup. They're definitely looking and hoping that they get healthy sooner rather than later. But talking about this women's team, it's not all been down. They've had some bright spots throughout the course of the season. Anthony, who's a player that's been impacting this team so far this year?
I think to start with impact players, you got to start with Yaya Lopes. Her presence has just been undeniably a key factor when they're successful. She had a big game against Binghamton last week on Friday, kind of the reason why they were able to get over the hump and win that game. They're going to need her to have another big game tonight, especially as we await Maddie Diskowski, Tiana Johnson returning from injury. Yaya's going to need to step up and be that presence in the front court for them. And when she plays well, the Bonnies usually play well, and they're usually in every game that she is successful in. So I expect a big game from her. I think she'll have a big impact against Robert Morris tonight.
And Louis?
I think the woman I want to go with is someone that I think complements Anthony's player, and that is Nikki Oppenheimer. We're seeing some of her best stats in her entire career. She's having career highs in points per game, rebounds. She played 34 minutes against Binghamton. She's definitely becoming more involved in the role with the women. She's definitely getting a higher role. And even though she still has some struggles with the turnovers, I think maybe she can minus them. We remember her goals from her interview with our own Robin Stone. And I think really as conference play comes in January, we're really going to see her play a crucial part into getting the women's team where they need to be.
Yeah, and I'll just mention, we've already mentioned, I think 3 times now, they got to get a healthy backcourt. They have, 2 of their best players, Tiana Johnson and Maddie Diskowski. Diskowski, their best scorer. You could arguably say she can score from all spots on the court. And Tiana Johnson, they've had to go with Nadeshka Lassine at the starting point guard, transfer from a junior college. She's trying to still get acclimated to Division I college basketball. Johnson, when she's in there, she knows what she's doing. Veteran presence. They definitely want to get those girls healthy before the start of the Atlantic 10 schedule.
Yeah, but having those younger players get a chance to get some play, get some run, the last couple games without Johnson, without Diskowski has been crucial. Lassine getting some run, Brianna Ware having her moments as well. Bringing that young talent along with the experience they're going to get back, it could really help St. Bonaventure as they enter A10 play.
You mentioned Brianna Ware. She's maybe the next Asia Johnson. You know, she's got that kind of similar traits to her. You know, they're both from New York City. I think Jesse Fleming, head coach for the Bonnies, he loves recruiting girls out of New York City just because of their tenacity and their will and the way that they play. And Brianna Ware, Asia Johnson, maybe a little similarity. Obviously, Asia is at Mississippi State now. She's balling it up over there. But Brianna Ware, keep an eye out for that name. Just a freshman. She is going to have a good career here, I think. Well, guys, talking a little bit more about the men's team. They welcome in the Eagles just in a couple hours in the Riley Center against at home. But it's going to be a little bit of a different feeling. But on Florida Gulf Coast side, Anthony, I'll start with you. Who's kind of a player that Bonnies fans should watch out for?
My key player is Isaiah Thompson. Florida Gulf Coast has an abundance of talent. They got a lot of guys who can shoot, but leading that attack is Thompson. He is a 40% shooter this year, shot 42% last year, played 3 seasons at Purdue for the Boilermakers. He played 37 games last year, started 20 of those. He's going to be a real factor for the Bonnies. They're going to need to prevent his shooting and prevent him from getting in the paint as well because he likes to attack off the dribble, can split ball screens. Really, really good player for Florida Gulf Coast. And Pat Chambers, the coach for Florida Gulf Coast, is going to need a big game from him. And if he has a big game, I'd be concerned for the Bonnies, but limiting Mr. Thompson, Bonnies should be in good shape if they do that.
Yeah, and Louis, on the Bonnies side, who's a player that you think is going to really need to show out tonight for the Bonnies to come away with a 6th straight home win?
I think the guy we're definitely need to be looking at is the big man himself, Chad Venny. He's definitely having some really good, I'll say he's the Gotham Classic MVP. He is having career highs ever since he transferred. He came in over from Oregon State. We've been seeing him career highs in points per game, 10.9. He definitely went up in his rebounds per game from 3.0 to 5.9. And we're really starting to see him become more. He had like 26 points the last 2 games, 16 rebounds. He's definitely becoming a player that's definitely definitely efficient around the rim, in the paint. And hopefully like tonight, he can be able to play good against guys like Thompson and be able to contain Fgcu enough to where the Bonnies can keep the game close.
Yeah, a lot of players on the Eagles that the Bonnies I think are going to have to worry about because they're a good team. Obviously, they beat USC at the very start of the season. Their losses, you know, Tennessee, number 7 team in the country right now, so that's not a bad loss. Lost to San Diego and Florida Atlantic. They got blown out. Florida Atlantic's a really good basketball team. So they have no bad losses at this point in the season. The Bonnies, you could say they have a couple of bad losses. So it's going to be an important game for the St. Bonaventure Bonnies to get back on track, especially after Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, Florida Gulf Coast is usually a contender in the A-Sun, and they're showing that again this year. I think they're in some projected brackets right now. So if the Bonnies can pick up a win tonight and get this winning streak back on track, they're going to be in really good shape. Florida Gulf Coast is a very good team.
Very much so. They'll be tipping off in just a couple hours. Guys, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll give our final prediction for that game tonight and talk about the upcoming games elsewhere for St. Bonaventure's men's and women's team. This is BBN.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a 4th ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Before we end the show, we want to remind you to send us your favorite Christmas movies. Rudolph or Frosty? Send us your favorite Christmas movies and we will share your responses on our Instagram page throughout the course of break. And guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming schedule for St. Bonaventure's men's and women's team. Starting on the men's side, they finished their non-conference schedule while the Bonnie students are home for semester break with Florida Gulf Coast. They come to town tonight, and then the Bonnies hit the road to face off against the Franciscan rival Siena, Franciscan Cup, Louie, as you mentioned earlier in the show. And then they're going to be looking for revenge against Northern Iowa on Thursday. And then they'll start the A-10 slate with a home game against a very solid UMass team on New Year's Eve. On the women's side of things, after tonight's game versus Robert Morris, they'll travel to face off against Marshall on Sunday, then return to the Riley Center for their next 2 games against Colgate on Wednesday and finish their non-conference schedule against Big Four rival Buffalo a week later. Well, guys, speaking of our favorite segment, I think, is giving our final predictions for the upcoming games for both the men's and women's teams here today. Starting with the women's game, Anthony, what do you got happening tonight?
Well, I think the Bonnies are going to duplicate their success from Friday, and they're going to get another win here. I expect another big game from Yaya Lopes. I think she continues this trend of dominating inside and being the big factor for the Bonnies. I think Robert Morris, just since it's a home game, they'll give him a tough time. And we mentioned in that last segment about revenge, Robert Morris could be looking for revenge since they lost that opening game last year. But I expect the Bonnies to get on the right track and get into a good spot before they go into the holiday break.
Yeah, and Louie?
Yeah, I definitely think the Bonnies, the women's Bonnies are definitely going to be looking to be in the right sense before the holiday break. Like Anthony said, Robert Morris will definitely be out for revenge. But I think that the Bonnies being back at home court will definitely be a huge advantage for them. I think Nikki and Ayana are definitely going to be an effective duo to really help to contain Robert Morris and really score points for the teams. I think I can imagine this team definitely getting the win.
I think it's going to be a very tough game for St. Bonaventure. They go to Robert Morris. Robert Morris, they're a good team this year. I just can't get out of my head the fact that St. Bonaventure lost by 38 points to Canisius. And you don't want to look at this game, well, they beat them by this many points, and then they lost to them by this many points. But Robert Morris, they did beat Canisius by 10. I just think Robert Morris is a very good team right now. And if St. Bonaventure is healthy, I think they'll definitely be able to give them a run. But if they're still without that backcourt, I think it's going to be tough for St. Bonaventure. And I think Robert Morris will be able to get their revenge from last year's game. But if Yaya can have another 22-point performance, entire career high, then it could be a different story.
Yeah, I think if she has a game like she did Friday night, which I think she can, I think Robert Morris will have a little bit of a tougher time. And why not pick the upset before Christmas break? I do think that they can get it done, but it's going to be really tough.
And guys, well, St. Bonaventure's men's team, they welcome in the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles out of the ASUN Conference. First time ever that these two teams have faced each other on the men's side of things. The women's teams faced off against each other in the NCAA tournament back in, I forget what year, but when the Bonnies went to the Sweet 16, they had to go through Florida Gulf Coast. So all-time Bonnies basketball record against Florida Gulf Coast, 1-0. Is it going to stay that way, Anthony?
Well, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Florida Gulf Coast, they're called Dunk City, but they're not Dunk City anymore. They do things all around the rim, really. They shoot the ball really well, like we've said before. I think that they're going to be able to have some of their own energy coming off the road, not really in an extremely hostile environment. I think they'll find success early, but I do think there's something about this young team playing at home and the success they've had in the Riley Center, and I think that's going to carry them tonight, having some home cooking before they hit the road for the Franciscan Cup, before their revenge game against Northern Iowa. They got to get the job done tonight, and I expect the Bonnies to do just that. I expect a big game from Chad, Daryl, all the Bonnies stars. I got the Bonnies winning this one 71-64.
Louie?
I definitely go on. I agree with Anthony here. I think this young men's team is definitely showing really well. They're definitely best when they're playing at home in the Riley Center. I think if they can they definitely, like I said before, they need to be able to minimize their mistakes. They need to minimize the turnovers, fouls. They need to be able to shoot effectively on the free throw. They got Daryl has to have a good game. Cairo Luke has to have a good game. Chad Vinny has to have a good game defensively. But I can really see this team really taking steps forward to really contain FGCU. I still think it's going to be a close game no matter what. But I really do think that with considering the atmosphere and just how this team plays best at home, I can see the Bonnies taking this one 70-61.
I think it's going to be a very tough game for St. Bonaventure. The home and away splits for some of the key players for St. Bonaventure, it's pretty drastic. Like Daryl Banks III shoots a lot better from three when he's at home than when he's away. And they've played 5 games at home, 5 neutral site or away games. He's not going to have that student body to really get him going. Cairo Luke, kind of the same way. The Bonnies, they were 15-2 at home last season. There were 2 losses, a tough Davidson team in the conference schedule. and Northern Iowa when they came during Christmas break. And I think because A.J. Green goes off 35 points, knocks down 9 3-pointers, I think Florida Gulf Coast, they have 2 very good three-point shooters. They got Caleb Cato, who third all-time in Florida Gulf Coast history in three-point makes. They have a guy named Chase Johnson who came from Stetson, broke the single-season record for three-pointers made in back-to-back seasons, had 79 and then I think 99. So these guys can shoot. St. Bonaventure is known for their three-point defense. We'll see if it's able to carry over for tonight, but I think we're going to see another Northern Iowa game. And St. Bonaventure, because I think their guys are going to be able to get some three-point shots on them, and I think the Bonnies are going to lose this one 76-72. I think it's going to be close. I think not having the student body, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, the key thing we keep coming back to is the three-point shooting. The Florida Gulf Coast three-point shooting, I think, is really going to decide this game. If they shoot it really well, I think it's going to be tough. But if the Bonnies, like we've seen all year, defend the three really well, we've seen it against Notre Dame, we saw it last week against Cleveland State. If they defend the three well, they'll definitely have a shot. Just got to say, though, with your last show now and your last time in the studio with us, I'm a little bit disappointed that you went the other way. We went with your mind maybe a little bit. But we just want to say thank you for everything. You've contributed so much to the show. Maybe the final predictions the last 2 weeks, you kind of gone the other way, but that's not really what matters. You've done so much for SBU-TV Sports and for BBN as a whole. So we just want to say thank you before you head off to much more important ventures in your life.
Well, thank you, guys. I want to give a huge thanks to Nick Elliott, our producer. He's done a great job producing this show the last 2 seasons. And, Mike Spong, he's not with us right now, but he was, catalyst in helping this show come to life. So a big thanks to those 2 people and everybody in the production, team that helps make this show possible. So I thank everybody for that. And I'll be watching as the St. Bonaventure Bonnies team throughout the course of the year and the later years. And we'll see how good this team can really be. Very young, very talented. It's going to be an exciting time. Well, guys, that's all the time we have for BBN today. I was Ryan Boland, Anthony Goss, and Louis Genovese. The Bonnies take on the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles tonight. It's going to be a good one. We'll see what happens. You were watching Bonnies Basketball Now.